Easy now. Papa got things making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they finished change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your...
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael-Shawn and I'm here with my co-host, Christopher Kidd. Make sure you follow us both up on the tweet machine. You guys can follow me at Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Also, shout out to all our subscribers on YouTube. Seahawks Man to Man. That is the number 2 man on YouTube. Over 2,000 subscribers. Shout out to all you guys. Hit that button if you're not a subscriber. Please do. Chris, talk to him.
What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206 and that's CKid206.
All right. Double shout outs here before we bring in our special guest for this midweek episode. Shout out to everyone again who attended our live podcast at the Roanoke in Seattle on Friday. That was an amazing time. On behalf of myself and Chris, thank you guys so much. We'd love to do another one of those. If we do, we'll keep you guys posted. Second shout out to our previous guest on our recap episode, the homie Ben Baller, who hosted us at his fancy smancy location after the game, after Seahawks Broncos. That was very fun. Shout out to Ben. Make sure you guys check out that episode as well. Like I said, this is our midweek episode where we talk to someone who covers the Seahawks' upcoming opponent. And I think coming in at what's probably Chris' second place for most podcast appearances, I'm pretty sure, based on how often the Seahawks play the 49ers, we have the homie Matt Barrows on the line. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. Yeah. What number podcast is this for me? I feel like we're double digits probably by now, right? Maybe.
It's been quite a few.
Feels
Yeah,
like it.
By the nature of the division, I believe you and Jordan Rodriguez, shout out to Jordan, who covers the Rams, lead the way with our podcast appearance. I think Ben Baldwin as well is in there. I think you guys are top 3 for all different reasons. You guys all bring a different flavor. So you just covered 49ers, Bears this past Sunday. Did you bring a rain jacket to Chicago with you?
I did not. I mean, they were calling for, it was one of those things where the forecast was saying, 60% one day, 90% the next, 40% the next. So it was all over the map. So I figured it was going to be just a little bit. And it was a real deluge right before the game and then during the game in the fourth quarter. I don't know if your listeners were watching it, but anything that fell in the fourth quarter just stayed on the ground. And by the end, the TV broadcast was having such trouble with it because it was all moisture, it was all water on the field that it was reflecting, and you couldn't see the white lines, and so they had to interlay black yardage lines in order for anybody to see on TV. It was like watching a game in the 1940s or something like that. It was a throwback in a lot of bad ways, including for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think that was also an advertisement for getting some of these NFC North, making sure every NFC North team plays in a dome.
That's right.
I think Chicago should, Minnesota already does, Detroit already does. Yeah, I think it's about time for Green Bay and Chicago to follow suit. Was that game, Matt, in Chicago at all similar to? I feel like they had another monsoon game the Niners did maybe a couple years ago, the Super Bowl year in like Washington or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of same circumstance where just a field that doesn't drain very well. So you have all this kind of pooling water on it, and it just makes for an old-timey style of game. That game was 9-0 49ers. This game was just as messy. The Bears kicker missed 2 extra points. I mean, it was just bad conditions. And the 49ers played a really rainy game last year in Levi's, basically the only day that it rained heavily in the Bay Area all of last year against the Colts on national television. They lost that one too. So rain is their bugaboo. And guess what? They've got a 40% chance of rain on Sunday right now. That's probably going to change. But like I said, it hasn't rained here in a long time. And it would be fitting, maybe ironic, if it rained when the Seattle Seahawks are coming down.
Chris, where should you think we should start with Trey Lance or should we start with Jimmy G? We should go with the guy
You
who's
know
the
what?
past, or the guy who's the present.
That's a good question. I think let's start with the guys in the present. And that would be Trey Lance because I watched the game and I'm skeptical, but you see them every day. You see what Trey Lance is capable of doing. You see what he's weak at, where he needs to improve in. Has he really proven to be the better option over Jimmy G? Because again, I haven't seen it, and watching the game, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't that impressed.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is arguing that Lance right now is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I think what people are arguing is that he needs the time in order to become better than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's gotta happen with repetitions, and that's what this guy doesn't have. Going back to
Mm.
college, a great way to look at Trey Lance is to kind of contrast him to Jimmy Garoppolo. And Garoppolo is very accurate, very quick release. He was really good with short passes, intermediate passes, the crossing routes that are the bread and butter of Kyle Shanahan's offense. And so Trey Lance is really the polar opposite in so many ways. He can throw the deep ball, which Jimmy G really didn't ever even attempt. So the whole field is open to Trey Lance. What he's not good at is getting the ball out quickly. He's got a very kind of slow and deliberate release. He's not good on the layups. There were at least two that were supposed to be quick screens to Deebo Samuel, allowing Deebo to do what Deebo does and run down the field. And he just missed them. And these were kind of point blank shots. And you didn't really see Jimmy Garoppolo do that. But he also can run. And he did that quite a bit and probably too much against the Bears. 13 carries and a lot of kind of lowering his shoulder and trying to plow over the tackler, which is what he did at North Dakota State. Of course, he was going against JMU and Illinois State at that time. So that's I frankly can't see that being sustainable over time. I mean, you see Kyler Murray, even Justin Fields, who's a big guy, gets down, gets out of bounds, and does the slide, and Trey Lance lowers the shoulder. And I just think that's just asking for trouble.
Wait a minute, Matt. So you're saying that James Madison isn't some like NFL factory here? Hold on, man. Don't short.
Well, I shouldn't say that. Charles Haley is from James Madison. So the great 49er Charles Haley. Gary Clark, also a guy I grew up watching in Washington, D.C., went to JMU. The Dukes.
I'm curious because I look at Seattle and how everyone has bought into Geno Smith. Everybody loves him, his character. They're rooting for Geno. And I look at the Niners, and I know they didn't win their first game, but I imagine everyone's still rallying behind this young player. He's only in his, second year? So I would imagine no one's giving up on him yet. But how is his locker room presence with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, the other players on this team?
It's good. That's probably his strength. I mean, he's a natural leader. He's got a great, demeanor. I don't know how to describe it, but he just sort of exudes confidence. He's very young, but he just has a way about him that everybody seems to react to. Friendly, nice, confident. When he's out there, he doesn't look out of place. I mean, I remember watching Alex Smith, who was the number 1 overall pick in 2005, and I always likened it to, a baby horse learning to walk for the first time. It's all rickety and it doesn't look right. And I never got that vibe from Trey Lance. He came in week 5 last year, lost that game to the Cardinals, but again, looked like he belonged in the NFL. And that's what kind of gives me a sense that, okay, it's going to be up and down this year. There's going to be some ugly games. I mean, he completed 46% of his passes against the Bears. And not very many people think he's going to hit the 60% mark for the full season, which is bad. You don't see NFL quarterbacks not hit 60 usually. But I just believe in him in the long term, and that's what it's all about. It's about the long term. So you got this weird thing happening in San Francisco where you've got this ready to win the Super Bowl roster at 21 spots, offense and defense. The 22nd spot, everybody seems to realize is going to be a work in progress, and it happens to be the quarterback spot.
Yes. So that is where the Niners are intriguing to me. You know, someone who's like not like a Niners fan, just kind of follows the league at large. They're doing the thing that I think teams it's really dangerous to do, both in the NFL and in the NBA. I don't know so much about how teams do this in baseball, but it's playing for the present and the future at the same time. It would seem like, and like you said, the Seahawks are somewhat similar in this regard. I don't think they have a championship roster outside of QB, but it's pretty decent. But like you said, the Niners do. So I mean, I'll put it this way as it pertains to Trey Lance. Then is there how much patience can they afford to have? Can Kyle Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, how much patience can they afford to have with a young quarterback when the whole rest of the roster is like, hey, we just made the NFC title game and we would like to advance one game further this year?
You just hit it. That's the question. And now they've got Jimmy Garoppolo as the backup too. So they're sort of triple underscoring that a basic question for the season. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's you start out 0-4. I mean they play the Seahawks this week. They've got the Broncos after that in Denver. Then they've got the Rams after that. So it's not out of the realm that you get off to a wicked start. And I'll tell you what, I know the fan base is going to be wondering about it, and I got to think that the locker room would as well. They think that their defense is good enough, their running game is good enough, and they bolstered the special teams, adding Brian Schneider as their coordinator in the offseason. And they think that that's going to be enough to sort of prop up isn't the right word, but give Trey Lance enough support that they can maybe break even over the first half of the season and then take off in the second half, which is what they did last year. And that was all working to a T in Chicago, and then all of a sudden it didn't. And Lance couldn't bring him back, and there was a deluge at the time. So there's all sorts of excuses and reasons you can put forth. Fact of the matter is he missed some throws, and he threw a critical interception at a bad time. So, what you just underscored is the absolute storyline of the season for the 49ers. What's going to happen to a Super Bowl ready roster if the number one quarterback is sort of up and down and inconsistent and costing the team games?
It also didn't factor in that Chicago game, the Dante Pettis revenge there. Kind of did you get that in your nuggets of your story? I didn't get to read.
I didn't. Yeah, I mentioned him in the story. We got Marquise Goodwin coming up too. That could be
That's
another
right.
wide receiver, an ousted wide receiver revenge game for Marquise.
Yeah, I thought this is not totally on the 49ers or the Seahawks, but I do one of the debates that I like outside of establish the run or like does the run set up the pass, running backs don't matter. I do like the debate in sports and whether like momentum is a thing. And I've kind of decided that I'm on the side of like in game it exists, but maybe game to game or week to week, maybe not as much. But like seeing Pettis score, I feel like was like a good example of like I don't know, guys, momentum might be real in game. Because it kind of flipped when on that broken play after that, right?
Oh, for sure. It was by far the biggest. I mean, I think Justin Fields had completed 3 passes before that, and that happened late in the third quarter. They had 72 total yards at that point, and then it all changed from that point forth.
So, Matt, staying on Trey Lance a little bit, because I do want to ask about the whole Jimmy G dynamic of the offseason, because I do think that was like fascinating to kind of observe from afar. Do you think that with Trey Lance and the ups and downs that he's going to have, that he can lead them to where they want to go this year?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that the other facets of the team that I just mentioned are really good, and it's going to keep them in games. And I don't think that Trey Lance cost him the game on Sunday. And I think that would be the real reason to give him a hook, is if he's just so bad or throws so many picks that, he's the reason why they lose. He wasn't the reason. They had 99 penalty yards in that game. And the rain and Deebo fumbled, on an early drive in the red zone. So there were many, many reasons. He contributed to it, I think, but he wasn't the reason. So I think he can for sure. Like I said, I think it's going to be up and down. And, the 49ers are crossing their fingers that Sunday against the Seahawks is going to be up for him. And it sort of takes some of the pressure out of that tire or balloon or whatever metaphor you want to use. And then, maybe the next week there's a mistake against Denver, and then the next week there's a good play against the Rams. But it gets them kind of through to a point where he's more established and more comfortable.
What was just locally, whether like talk radio, TV, fans, was there a lot of overreaction to how he looked in training camp with the interceptions and stuff that we were all reading about?
Yes, this is the Twitter age. I mean, there's overreactions about anything that's happening. So absolutely, and it was all true, and it was sort of kind of was proven in the preseason in week one. He's not good on short throws. There are some kind of NFL throws, out patterns to the sideline, for example, that you got to make if you're an NFL quarterback. It's just such a bread and butter throw, and he's not 100% on those at all. It's all over the map. So that's an issue. I mean, I think the 49ers really fell in love with the guy, who he is, what's on top of his head. I mean, they love the fact that he's 6'4" and 225, but he's not a great passer. And at some point, and I think they thought, okay, we can smooth that out. The rest of the stuff is more important. But at some point, you have to start wondering, wow, they traded all of that for a guy who's not good at the one thing a quarterback does, which is throw a football. So, I mean, he's good. He's just not. It's not refined by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I saw it.
That's a wild caveat. Like, man, that's like, yo, I got this really nice car for you. Like, yo, it's all painted, stereo system crazy, all cameras on everywhere you can look, heated seats, there's TVs in the dash, everything. Like, but it ain't got no engine. But other than that, like, it looks cool. Like everything about it, but you can't drive it nowhere though.
He's a great pilot. He's just not good on takeoffs and landings. That's the
Oh man, actually, was the Seahawks game last year his first extended action, that week 4 game?
Yeah, wasn't it?
No. He had come in week 1 against the Lions. They did something where he would come in for a few plays here and there. But yeah, you're right. The first extended action was after Kerry Hyder hurt Jimmy Garoppolo's calf in that game in Levi's.
So I want to not spend too much time on Jimmy G because he's obviously not going to play this Sunday. Well, hopefully he doesn't. Trey doesn't get hurt or anything. Don't wish that on anybody. But from experience you've had covering Jimmy G, genuinely, like sincerely, how do you think he's handled all of this? And I'm gonna double up on that question. And like how have his teammates handled the situation with Jimmy?
I mean, as well, the teammates have handled it as well as you could. And I don't know how many other quarterbacks there are in the league that you could have done this with. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they reworked that contract. They knew that he could coexist in this locker room with Trey Lance. I mean, I just talked about Lance's personality. Jimmy has a very kind of accommodating personality as well. He wants to be one of the guys. He's one of 4 brothers, and that's sort of what he grew up in, sort of that atmosphere. I think that is also a critique of him, that he's not. I mean, I don't think Drew Brees would have stood for that. I don't think Russell Wilson would have stood for that. And you can go on and on and on. So he's not the field general. He's not the locker room general that we come to think of when we think of like the stereotypical quarterback. And I think we've seen that at times. On big stages, he has tended to fade away a little bit. So I think that's both a strength of his and it's a critique. Yeah, so the 49ers are obviously trying to use that as a strength this year and having two what they think are starting caliber quarterbacks.
I want to get back into the offense because you wrote a piece a few days ago, 3 days ago, about 49ers spotlight turns to Kyle Shanahan's new right hand man on the coaching staff. And that's because Mike McDaniels, he's now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and he was a big keystone in the run game and just what the Niners were all about, the physical blocking, the whole everything about them, right? I'm curious, based off of what you saw in week 1, where they need to improve in the run game heading into this matchup against the Seahawks.
I mean, I thought that the run game was good against the Bears. I mean, the Bears were playing the run, and the field conditions were terrible, and they were still able to run the ball. I mean, they averaged 4.6 yards a carry. They had 37 carries in the game. They shouldn't have lost the game. I mean, like I said, those sort of foundational things that I talked about, running game, defense, special teams, those were all good. But they fell behind, and so they couldn't really run the ball in the fourth quarter like they wanted to. It was also a swamp at that point. Yeah, I didn't see. A lot of people have reacted. Is the loss to the Bears a commentary on Mike McDaniel and his absence? I didn't. I didn't think that that was. They were very kind of diverse and lots of different type. They had a triple option. Deebo was running the ball. They had a handoff to Brandon Ayuk. So that creativity that Mike McDaniel is known for was there. I mean, he left all those plays that he drew up are still in San Francisco. There are hundreds and hundreds of them, and they took a small chunk to use against the Bears. So I don't think that that was. I realize that Mike McDaniel is the toast of the town right now, but I don't think it was a factor in that game.
Also, you did mention the running game. Well, I asked about it, but I'm curious. You guys now lose Elijah Mitchell, right? He's going to be out for what is it, 4 weeks or so, 2 months?
Eight
8 weeks,
weeks.
so 2 months. So, what does that mean for someone like Deebo Samuel, who is the last year, he's transitioned into this package where he's now a running back, wide receiver. He is ultimately your flex and does everything, right? So, what does that mean for him, and how confident are you in the running back room? Who's going to step up?
Well, I mean, not confident because there's only one guy that's really done it before, and that's Jeff Wilson. I'm sure Seahawks fans are familiar with him. He's just, lunch pail type of guy. I mean, he's not a burner or anything like that, but he runs hard, and the 49ers know that they can rely on him. After that, though, and this is the team that's had to go deep into its running back core. Each of the 5 seasons that Kyle Shanahan's been head coach, probably similar to what happens in Seattle every year. They've got two rookies, Ty Davis Price, who played at LSU, was third round pick this year, and then an undrafted guy, Jordan Mason, out of Georgia Tech. And both of those guys are big guys. I mean, the 49ers have gone bigger just about everywhere on offense, especially at tailback because they're trying to sort of protect themselves from these injuries that they've gotten in previous years and already have right now. But we really don't know about those guys. Neither of those guys took a carry against the Bears. Jordan Mason was really good in the preseason, and he kind of reminds me of one of these Shanahan guys that come out of nowhere. Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Alfred Morris type of guys that nobody knows about on draft day, but all of a sudden ends up carrying the load for the team. So I don't know which of those two is going to be the number 2 guy against the Seahawks, but one of them will be, and that guy's going to get some carries. So from a kind of a fantasy football perspective, there's an opportunity for kind of a breakout star to emerge, just given how much Kyle Shanahan likes to run the ball. But to answer your question, I think Deebo will get a more carries. He's sort of their home run hitter at running back, especially with Elijah Mitchell out. They don't have that guy that can kind of turn a 3rd and 1 into a 75-yard touchdown. Deebo's the only guy that does that. And he played a lot of running back in Chicago. I think that was, the elements had something to do with that. He was more useful for them as a running back than a wide receiver because there wasn't going to be very much passing in that game.
as someone who, no one cares about my fantasy team, but as someone who just traded for Deebo about a couple hours ago, that is great
Wow.
news.
Who gave up Deebo after 1 week? Jeez.
So there's a
I
guy in my
want in
league.
I want in on your league. It sounds like there's some suckers in there.
Well, it's $150 buy-in, so I need to actually get out of this league because I am just
Oh,
donating money to the pot. The last few
oh, I
years, and
see.
he overdrafted receivers kind of, so he ended up with like Devontae Adams, uh, Deebo, Michael Thomas, but then like his running backs stink. Like he has like Travis Etienne,
Okay.
and he has Damian Pierce in Houston, who I think is actually going to be a decent running back. Meanwhile, on my end, I kind of just loaded up on backs. I have James Robinson, I have Zeke, David Montgomery, Christian McCaffrey because I had the second pick. So I'm like the inverse of him. So we kind of just needed each other because my
I
receivers were
see. I
Jalen
see.
Waddle and I have Jalen Waddle and Gabriel Davis and Christian Kirk. So my receivers aren't great; they're okay, but I was like, I could use Deebo. So I actually gave up Zeke and I gave up Jalen Waddle to go ahead and get Deebo back. So we'll see. I'm also going to start Christian Kirk. Like that's too much of my fantasy team, but I am happy about that with Deebo. Actually, speaking of Deebo and running the ball, though, was I had kind of heard early on, about Deebo not really wanting to stay in San Francisco unless there was some, things that happened for him, and then boom, the trade request comes out a little bit later. What was your understanding of how Deebo genuinely feels about his role as a running back in addition to his role as a receiver?
He loves it. I mean, it guarantees. I mean, that's the whole kind of the most vexing thing for a receiver. I mean, they want to have the ball in their hand, and it's so dependent on so many things. The quarterback getting them the ball, being the primary one, but being a running back, you automatically get it. So I think he likes it, and he was having a very good game. He had the fumble. That's if you look on Pro Football Focus, you'll see that his grade is really low, but that was the reason. He had a strong game, good running, everything else. Scored a big touchdown, first touchdown of the game. So I think he likes it. He's built for it. He's good at it. He gives them juice, and like I said, they're sort of going with a might is right attitude this year. And he kind of is the one element in that backfield that can really kind of add some electricity to it.
I want to look at offensively again and the George Kittle being out because I didn't know how much Trey Lance struggled with the short throw. So my idea was, you know what, George Kittle's going to be the guy. He can just dump it off to 6 yard out routes, curl routes, just those little things. And you were talking about how much he struggled with it. So I'm guessing the game plan didn't really backfire not having George Kittle. Although in the run game he is a problem. He can create lanes. So what was your take on not having George Kittle for that game, and what's the current update moving forward for Kittle?
Yeah, no, I think he would have been. I mean, that was a tight end game just because there was so much running the ball, and there was a pass early in the game to his replacement, Tyler Croft. Croft's a good blocker. He does not have George Kittle's speed, and Trey Lance just overshot him by 5 yards, and that was a route that was designed for George Kittle. So I just wonder whether that was practice with George Kittle, and it would have been a TD if it was Kittle running it with Croft. It ended up being too long. I think Kittle is very much up in the air for week 2 as well. I mean, he's got a groin strain that they don't want um, to become a 6-week injury. So it didn't sound like there was any question. Kittle made it sound like he might have played when we talked to him on Friday, that he was close to playing. Shanahan said, well, it really wasn't that close. And on Saturday, they decided to hold him out. So I would say it's at this stage 50-50. Watch during the week to see whether he practices at all. And if the answer is he didn't, then he's not going to play. But I think that's a nice mismatch for the 49ers. I didn't think that the Seahawks linebackers looked all that fast yesterday. Bobby Wagner, out of all of those guys over the years that have just killed the 49ers, I mean, to me, he's the one that did it the most. The biggest thorn in the 49ers side always seemed to have a big pick or a pick six or something. in those games. I think 49ers fans, the 49ers are going to be really, really happy not to see Bobby Wagner back there this year.
Yeah, no. On the flip side, as Seahawks fans, we're very happy not to see George Kittle. Because
Yeah,
that dude,
right.
he is very, very, very good. And
against the Seahawks.
he's just very good in general. I do
Yeah.
push back on that Bears 49ers game being a tight end game unless you are a fantasy owner of Cole Kmet like I am. You got
Right. Yeah.
big fat juicy donut in that game. Matt, what do 49ers reasonably I preface reasonably with, we're talking about fans here. But what do 49ers fans want from the seat? Like, is this a year where guys legitimately think like, I want my 49ers to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah. I mean, I think they were one pick away. Jaquaski Tart dropping just a basically a punt from Matt Stafford in the championship game from going to the Super Bowl and playing a team that they beat in the regular season in their house in the Bengals. So I think that they feel like if Tart brings that ball in, they have likely a Super Bowl title. So that's what's so you hit on it earlier. I mean, people expect this team to go to the Super Bowl. Um, they're better on defense than they were. They're much better on special teams, I think, than they were. And you could kind of shed more light about that and what Brian Schneider was able to bring to Seattle in those early Legion of Boom years. But I mean, they improved on their weak points last year. The one spot that they may not have improved is quarterback, and that's
Right.
the gigantic catch to the 2022 season.
I was gonna say, is there a world before we get on the defense? Is there a world where because Jimmy was hurt, right? By then, by the time they got to the playoffs, is there a world where Trey's not there now, but by New Year's Eve, he's potentially as good or better than just what Jimmy was last year in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a good point because Jimmy was not 100% in the playoffs, and his stats reflect that. Yeah, sure. I mean, how long does it take you to sort of get those basic throws down? I mean, that's what Shanahan is always harping on. He just doesn't have any reps. This guy, going back to college. I mean, he only played one full season at North Dakota State. His last season was limited to one game because of COVID. Didn't play a lot last year. This is essentially his rookie season. So I just don't know how long it kind of is going to take him to mature. I mean, you saw it. The guy that's brought up a lot is Josh Allen, who as a rookie was terrible. Not terrible. I mean, I think his completion
He was pretty
percentage
bad. He was pretty bad back then.
54%. I mean, you would not think that the Josh Allen you watched as a rookie it would have become the Josh Allen we're seeing light up the league today. So, and I'm sure he got the same sort of critiques that Trey Lance is getting. Oh, he throws a million miles an hour. The little dump offs are fastballs, this, that, and the other. And he figured it out, and he figured it out fast. To me,
Yeah.
Again, a guy who watched Alex Smith early on. I think that's absolutely possible. I just don't know what it's going to look like in 6 months.
I was just thinking, it's like, fortunately, the Niners have so many guys who are good with the ball in their hands. If Trey can't throw, I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will figure out how to hand it to Brandon Ayuk, hand it to George Kittle. They're going to be running the goddamn wishbone there by week 8 if Trey ain't figured it out. Probably scoring 24 points a night.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, they did that in Chicago. They did a triple option play on one of them. It was a throwback.
I want to spin it to the defense because there was one player that stood out, and he was making play after play after play. And I'm like, damn, who is this dude? I ended up having to Google it and find out after hearing his name over and over again on the broadcast, and that is Talanoa Hufanga. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, you got it. That's it.
You know, when I was watching him, one player that immediately came to mind when I was watching him, it was Jamal Adams, because he was always in the backfield making plays, and he was everywhere. He's physical, and he makes plays. And I was curious, who is he? Tell us about him. I'm sure you got a lot you saw a lot of him probably in training camp and preseason, and then he showed out in his first pretty much start for the most part with the Niners. So I was curious, just who is he? I know he went to USC, but I didn't remember him playing like that.
Yeah, no, they really like him. He was a 5th round pick last year, and he got into some games last year. He is a strong safety. I mean, he's really good around the line of scrimmage, to the point where you almost think, oh, is he more of a linebacker
Linebacker.
than a safety? So that game in Chicago was custom made for him because there wasn't going to be a lot of passing in that game. And he got to hang around the line of scrimmage. He basically played linebacker for a big part of the game. And he's really instinctive. What he lacks is top end speed. So he's not a classic free safety. And you wonder what's going to happen in sort of the polar opposite game where they're on turf. The weather conditions are good. They're playing an experienced quarterback. They're playing a team that's got actual starting caliber wide receivers. So this game, like I said, was custom made for him. He was fantastic. They really like him in San Francisco. They in the draft they have something that they call their gold helmet guys, and these are guys that hit every criterion, which is sort of leadership, intelligence. There's a whole bunch of things, and only a few guys over the years have gotten it. And he was one, and they got him in the 5th round. So they were really, really bowled over to have gotten him that late in the draft. And he sort of, it was a bit of a competition to begin the offseason. And he, from jump, he was the best guy at that spot. And he didn't really make it a competition at all. He's only 22. He's basically the same age as Trey Lance, but he's very mature and just a really terrific guy. You guys let him out of the Pacific Northwest. He's from Corvallis.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not sure how he ended up at USC and not Oregon State, but yeah, he also trains with Troy Polamalu. That's his mentor, and they've got very similar hair. So I can see a head and shoulders deal in the future if he keeps playing the way he did on Sunday.
Also, we had you on last year, and we were talking about the defense and D'Amico Ryans coming in. It was, what, 6th season with the Niners, and I think it would be his 2nd this year as the defensive coordinator. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Have you seen the improvement that you were looking for from last year up to this point? Because I thought the defense looked – I know they're going up against an inferior Chicago team with, the wide receiver group isn't it's not elite or anything, but I thought for the most part they looked really good. And then that first half, I was like, damn, I know it's bad conditions, but the Chicago Bears cannot move the football.
Yeah, I mean, everything was clicking. I mean, that's why I think it was so shocking for them to have lost that game by more than one score. I think what Ryans wanted to do this year was add sort of a press coverage element that would go hand in hand with Nick Bosa and the edge rush that they have. They really didn't have that in previous years. They went out and they got Charvarius Ward in free agency. That was their only real big free agency pickup, sort of like the Nwusu pickup for the Seahawks. And he's a press corner. He was really good in training camp. Lots of picks, this, that, and the other. So it's a more aggressive version of the defense that they've run in previous years, I would say.
Hey, Matt, I don't know how often you guys have gotten to talk to John Lynch specifically about it, or how much Kyle gets asked about it in times that aren't, Seahawks week, but like, how frustrating has the lopsided nature of the Seahawks rivalry kind of been for those guys? There's been some wins, obviously, but it feels like the Seahawks just won some impactful games against the Niners over the years. Like, are these guys kind of publicly expressed being frustrated about that or anything?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it's more so ownership, which is,
Makes sense.
this is sort of a newer group. And I really think it was the Harbaugh years that it was just such a real gut punch. I mean, we all knew about the Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh feud that went back to college and whatnot. But they had a window there that the Seahawks basically stole from them and ended their window, shut the window on them. And then the next few years, I mean, it was almost laughable, those games that they would play against the Seahawks. It would be over by the end of the first quarter. And they would just get beat up too. They would have huge numbers of injuries and terrible injuries as well. So I mean, it's just been a massacre for them, the rivalry, and not so much in recent years, but I don't think that John and Kyle are stung by it as much as the previous regimes. And I think, uh, Jed York, I mean, he kind of bears the scars of those losses as much as anybody.
So look, I want to look at the division in totality because I do think it is kind of interesting because I anticipated the Rams kind of taking a step back a little bit. For starters, I don't really think the Rams were the best team in the league last year. I feel really confident saying the Chiefs and Bills were better. Just the best team in the league doesn't win the Super Bowl every year. But as you know, Matt, when you play a first place schedule, the next year after you win your division, shit just gets harder for you. Injuries, O-lines are hard to keep together. Defenses are hard to keep together. I don't think anybody knows that better than the Niners, perhaps, who just have guys drop like flies. Then you got the Niners who are loaded everywhere, like you said, except for the most important position on the field. Kyler Murray's probably watching Warzone while we record this or playing Warzone while we record this podcast.
He's not in his playbook, you mean?
Oh, I don't think he's in the playbook right now. Boy, there's been just a quick tangent on that. There's been some funny week one things that kind of carry into some offseason narratives. I think last year it was really funny with you guys remember like Aaron Rodgers kind of had his drama last during the draft, kind of like, oh, is he going to play here? Blah, blah, blah. And then they go out, they got their boots smoked by somebody week one. I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, but they lost like 38-3 or something like last year. Maybe it was the Saints. Then they lost to the Saints. So that was kind of funny, the week one last year. And then you got Kyler Murray in the video games thing in his contract. They go out there and get rolled by the Chiefs. They got rolled. But Matt, I want to ask you, because of all the things that's going on in the division, and of course Seattle just traded Russell Wilson. Where are you at on the Niners in the division? Like, how do you think they stack up compared to everyone else?
I don't have a great answer. I just don't know. I mean, this team can be so many different things. I mean, it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in week one. They looked dominant in the first half. Like they were gonna, win 20-0 in that game. And then in the second half, they couldn't do anything right. So I think that, their whole take is that it was all self-inflicted. And they're right about that. And that's correctable, and they can fix that. But I mean, I've seen teams just sort of get off to bad starts and never be able to kind of pull out of them. So I don't know where this team's going. I mean, I think it's very, very talented, but it's all pivoting on an unknown, and that makes it hard to figure out. I mean, I still think it's the Rams division. They still have tons of talent. They know how to win. They've got a good head coach. I find him a little annoying, but I have to admit that he's a good head coach. So, I mean, I think it's going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight. The Cardinals got off to such a bad start that it's really easy just to say, oh, boy, they might end up coming in fourth this year. But week ones are weird, as you just noted. So, when we come back and we do this in the rematch, I'll have a better answer for you.
Yeah, I feel like what's the weird thing that this division usually has? It's like how's it go? Pete Carroll can't beat McVay. Is it McVay that can barely beat Shanahan?
Yeah, Shanahan usually has the number against McVay.
Shanahan,
except for in the NFC Championship game.
Right, because DBs can't catch punts sometimes in the biggest game of their life. So it's Pete can't beat McVay, Shanahan usually beats McVay, and that's right. And then Shanahan struggles against Pete. Is that what it is? Is that how it goes? The circle of life.
Shanahan struggles against Pete. Shanahan hasn't done very good against the Cardinals either. So it's the only team that they've kind of beat up on in recent years is the Rams. Ironically.
He's struggling with birds, man.
He's got a bird thing. Avian phobia.
That's what also makes the division so fascinating to me is that like everyone just no one can really dominate everybody because, like, after a while, you guys know each other's plays. You know how, like, the what the coordinators are thinking, what the quarterbacks like on each thing, what a team's going to do in its 2-minute drills, all of its third downs, all of its best red zone plays, all of its best 2-minute plays. It really just comes down to, like, whose quarterback makes it through the game healthy, who wins the penalties, who gets the fumbles, like I was thinking about this. Matt, I'm sure did you watch Seahawks Broncos the other night?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah.
I was rewatching the game this morning, and I was like, man, the Seahawks got lucky as hell. There were 5 fumbles in that game, and the Seahawks recovered 4 of them. Like,
but isn't that a Seahawks thing? Isn't that? I mean, you sort of make your own luck sometimes, and you get into that stadium. And my experience watching games there is that the bounces usually go the Seahawks' way. They just have a certain, I don't want to say luck because it's not that, but there's an energy that sort of gets going, and it's momentum is what it is, and things work out for the Seahawks, especially at what do you call it now, Lumen Field.
Yep.
It's always the link. It's always going to be the link to us.
Yeah, no, they've had one of the main exceptions, obviously, is Jacob Hollister not getting in against the Niners in 2019.
That was crazy.
That's true. Yeah.
Just like some of the losses to the Seahawks have marked some pivotal, not pivotal. What's the word I want? Like some
Pivotal.
It's not. It's the other word that kind of means like a flashpoint, almost, for the Niners losing to the Seahawks. Sometimes I go back to that 2019 loss, man. Like, I was just telling our Broncos writer Nick, because like that division is going to be really close, and it will be like, man, the roll of the dice is just going to decide maybe who gets the 1 seed in that division and who's like the 6th seed on the road or some shit in the AFC West. And I was telling them, like, yeah, 2019 in the NFC West was kind of similar. Jacob Hollister gets in, and what, the Seahawks are the 1 and the Niners are the 5. Instead, the Niners are the 1, go to the Super Bowl, and then the Seahawks are on the road at Philly and then at the road at Green Bay. It just changes. It can change everything. A guy's knee not getting in, or a toe, or a review, or a spot of the ball on 4th down. Like, this division's really a dogfight. Who do you think's going to win it, Chris? Who you got? Put you on the spot,
man.
Real fast.
No, I still think it's the Rams. I think they're the team to beat. I'd be stunned if it's anyone else but the Rams. I know they still have question marks with the receiving core. We saw it in the big game, but on Thursday night last week against the Buffalo Bills. But I still think their defense is one of the top defenses in the league, and I think they just got to get back to their routine. And we didn't see that, unfortunately, against the Buffalo Bills, who were just doing whatever they wanted. A lot of miscommunication, guys not knowing they're supposed to be. They'll fine-tune that, I think, as the season goes. Offense probably will get a little better, but they definitely are missing that wide receiver like OBJ that allows Cooper Kupp to just be Cooper Kupp and not have to be Cooper Kupp and then some. So I still think they're the best team in the division, but we'll see how it plays out. It really could be the Niners or the Seahawks surprising everyone with the 9 wins, 9-8 when winning the division. So it'll be that muddy, I think, maybe.
Yeah, this season's kind of giving me, with the Rams, it's early, but it's kind of giving me 2020 Niners vibes. Like, I was looking at the Rams like injury report after week 1. I was like, damn, y'all already on like your 3rd left tackle or something like that, or they don't have Whitworth, don't have I think Notebloom or something like that as the other guy. He hurt. Jalen Ramsey's giving up goal balls for Jalen Ramsey giving up goal balls for touchdowns like the last 3 games I've seen him in. He got cooked by Mike Evans. Jamar Chase was giving him some work. Stephon Diggs just ran by him. Like, the Rams kind of look vulnerable a little bit.
They do. They're getting up there in age too. That's a bad combination.
But before we get out of here,
you got the Niners or you got the Seahawks?
I got the Niners. I sort of like the circumstance of the Seahawks playing on Monday, short week, on the road, emotional win. So I think that sort of I always think that those dynamics, if the teams are even and one team is coming off a loss, got something to prove, the other team's coming off a win, might think that they're a little bit better than they are. I always think that favors the team coming off the loss. So close game. I don't think the 49ers are going to have any real blowouts and any victories least early in the season. But they've got a lot of weapons on offense, and I think no Jamal Adams. Like I said, I think that those linebackers are not a liability, but not what they used to be, obviously. So there could be some stuff in the middle of the field that the 49ers can exploit.
And then, of course, over and under. We haven't done this in a while, but 43.5 rushing yards for Trey Lance. I know he had, 9 carries last week for just under 50 yards that were for him specifically. I know he scrambled a few times, but what do you got here? 43.5 rushing yards over and under for Trey.
I'm going to go under only because I think that they have to, conserve him. He just can't. And when he runs hard. He doesn't know how to slide. I mean, and that's not hyperbole. I mean, he literally
He didn't
doesn't
slide.
hasn't learned how to do that. That kind of quickie slide that Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. He could pick up some cheap penalty yards by doing that too. But he comes in with a shoulder, and I just think that they need to kind of save him from himself and not have so many. They had 7 designed runs for the quarterback in that game. That's a lot. So I think it'll be under for this game.
Yeah, they need to. How far do the San Francisco Giants play from where the Niners play? How far is that?
It's far. It's like 45 minutes, but if there's traffic, it's 3 days to get
Damn, is the bay that big? It takes that far? Damn. I was gonna say I should call in somebody over there teach Trey how to slide, man. It is funny how many.
It would be a great sort of story, photo op, whatever. It's something that they would have done 20 years ago, but nowadays nobody cares. They just want to kind of get business, kick us out of the building.
What's the line on this game? I haven't looked it up.
8.5. San Francisco minus 8.5.
Oh wow, that's higher than I thought it would be.
It's really high.
Oh
yeah.
Okay.
Some actually have it at 9. But I think the consistent one is 8.5, which I'm like, damn, did they not watch the game?
Yeah, these are the division leaders coming in.
Yeah, hold
There's
on.
no respect. Well, that'll get the Seahawks charged up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, the one I'm looking at actually has the San Francisco Niners at minus 10.
10 points?
Yes, I'll take the Seahawks plus 10.
Yeah, that's not a bad. Yeah.
Yo, that's man.
Does Vegas know something we don't know that you guys know that they haven't reported on? Is someone out for the Seahawks?
Maybe it's Gino.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, that was something there. I'm missing something. Good thing I don't gamble like that anymore. But yeah, I take this hammer the Seahawks plus 10. Maybe I'm missing something there. Although I say that, and I've kind of talked over the course of kind of reading up on the Niners a little bit, obviously watching the game and hearing from Matt just now. I've almost talked myself into the Niners winning the division here. I don't know how I've done that over the course of 45 minutes or whatever. I like him. I think Trey, once he figures out how to properly compensate for his release time, because I do think it's way too long. But once he figures out how to compensate for that, and I trust Kyle Shanahan too. I just think that dude just knows how to just design an offense that's gonna just take whatever the defense is good at and then just fuck it up. Like I feel like I've seen it too many times, man. He's a good coach. Trey's got a strong ass arm, and I like those weapons, man. Good for George Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo. That's tough, man. That's a tough set of guys who can just. That's how Jimmy G was so good with what do you have, Matt? A bad hand or a broken thumb or something like that, and a bad shoulder, and they were still winning playoff games.
Yeah, for sure. No, he was kind of stitched together there at the end, and they were still winning. No Elijah Mitchell though. That's a big deal. They ran into running back issues early last year, and they went into a 4-game skid. And with Mitchell out, and they were just sort of really kind of lost in the woods. I mean, that's how important the running game is to this team. So if somebody needs to step up at that tailback spot, and Jeff Wilson will get the first crack at it, but that's a big deal, and it's something that they were trying to sort of guard themselves against this year. But boy, right off the bat, they got a bad one.
Yeah, I always feel injuries in football stink. I was thinking about this when I was rewatching Jamal get hurt, Jamal Adams. injuries in football stink all the time, but man, the guys who get hurt in week 1, that's really gotta sting, man. You go all off season, you hype, you probably don't play in the preseason because you're not trying not to get hurt, especially if you're a veteran. You get out there, and then it's like I'm watching the play. Jamal hurt his knee on. It's like that looks like a routine quarterback hit. Now he might be done for the year. Week 1, TJ Watt hurt, Elijah. No, I feel bad for the guys who are done or who get hurt week 1. That's gotta stink. But we got anything else? Anything else, Chris, before we get out of here?
Man, well, thank you for hopping on with us. It's been a blast. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on, and I'll see you guys. I forget what week the rematch is, but that'll be a fun one.
Oh yeah, I think that's not for a while, but I will. I know I'll see you down in the Bay. I'm bringing my rain jacket just in case. Like you said, 40%. I'm wearing my rain jacket now, so maybe I'll bring this one. 40%.
There you go. Yeah, bring your Seattle gear down with you, and we need the rain. We haven't had rain all year, so we welcome it down here.
All right, that's Matt Barrows. Does a great job covering the 49ers for The Athletic. Make sure you subscribe. That says subscribe. Hopefully you already subscribed if you're watching this podcast. But check out all his work on The Athletic. Does great stuff there. Thank you guys for listening to this Man to Man podcast. We will check you guys after the game that, according to Matt, the Niners will win. So book that, write that down. Chris, make sure we put that on loop there. So until next time, guys, we're out.